Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to share some knowledge that I learned in the intercultural communication subject. So first of all, let's begin with number one. I'm just gonna go with my Google Docs here. Number one is that the study of intercultural communication is all about change. So this means that if you notice or haven't noticed, you need to know that everything is changing in this world. And a lot of changes are happening very fast, like the acceleration of the acceleration once again. The people in this world, which means us, must adapt to those changes. The world changes have brought us into so many things, including the contacts, which could be direct or indirect contact with people who act differently because of their culture. And by acting differently is basically behaving in ways that we don't understand, which might not mean like the bad behavior, but we just don't understand it. And it's because of their culture. So that's why we need intercultural communication. Now, number five says that interactions with people of different cultures are so common. We tend to think that the intercultural communication or interacting with cultural sensitivity is not that common in our daily lives, but it's actually everywhere. In your classroom, you have people with different cultures. In your workplace, or anywhere. And when we talk about how globalization is bringing people closer together, it means that our lives are increasingly dependent on people or events in other part of the world. So for example, something happen on the other side of the world can affect my side of the world also. If we're still confused about what is international dependency, how are we dependent on the other side of the world? Number nine is a very good example. It's reliance on food imports. In America, right, there is a lot of population growth and also a lot of ethnic diversity increasing. For example, I'm Thai, and if for some reason I moved to live in the US, and a lot of Thai people are also in USA, right? That's the ethnic diversity we're talking about. And when I'm Thai living in the US, I also want to eat Thai food. So that's the demand for more and diverse food imports. US will have more cultural diverse food like pad thai, tom yum, and all those stuff. So they need to import, right? And to import those food, US and Thailand or US or the other culture needs to reach an international agreement with a lot of specifications like the food quality, the packaging, labels, storage, and all those stuff. And also to export from the US, that US want to export their own food to other countries, US also need to negotiate and meet the import requirements of that country. So all of these process requires intercultural communication in terms of cross-cultural negotiations, a lot of agreements, a lot of monitoring and inspections. So you're going to see intercultural communication is in every step. Moving on to number 13 to 15, this is a very good conclusion for the global conflicts. So if you know that something is a global problem, global conflicts, you need to understand that it requires global solution. Global problems require global solutions. But in order to create those global solutions, you cannot throw away the local knowledge that you learn from your own culture or different cultures. To be global, you need to be local. Number 15, we show you the steps that everything is related. Global solutions require integration and cooperation. And cooperation requires understanding. And understanding requires communication. That's why we need to learn about intercultural communication. Next, we're going to move on to a very interesting part of chapter one, is how to develop intercultural awareness, or number 16. And we have five subtopics in order to develop intercultural awareness. This one is my personal favorite, individual uniqueness. The key idea, if you want to develop intercultural awareness, is to understand that everyone, every individual has his or her own uniqueness. We need to begin from the myth. The myth is that we tend to think that people from the same culture are all the same. There's a reason that make this myth very convincing. We all know that culture is a very influential factor to shape someone. So it's kind of easy to just think that if culture is so influential, then people from the same culture will be influenced in the same way. But we might have forgotten that culture isn't the only factor to shape someone. So many other factors like genetic, social group experiences, language, gender, individual history, and all these stuff that will influence someone to be who they are today. So that's why we need to understand that people from the same culture are not the same. they have their own individual uniqueness because they're shaped with other factors than culture. Another reason that the myth is convincing is we learned a lot that personality or traits or how we grow up is partly genetic and partly acquired. Acquired means learn. So half of you may got the DNA. The other half of you may become who you are because you learned about it. And because as much of the personality is acquired, it is strongly influenced by culture. So yeah, it's easy to have that misconception. There's also the word national character that assumes that people from the same nation have this national character, so they're all the same. But don't worry, it's a very common mistake and a very convincing myth to believe. Just, from now on, just know that culture is a powerful force that can shape human behavior, but it's not the only factor that will make someone who they are. So people are more than their cultures and they have their own individual uniqueness. Number two is if you want to be aware in terms of intercultural communication, you need to understand what is generalizing and not to overgeneralize. So basically, you think that all Americans have tattoos. Here, this one. All Americans eat junk food. Asians are all good at math. Germans like beer and sausage. These are generalization. And once again, generalization is very easy to do because if you think you saw a group of people from one country doing exactly the same thing, like you might see a lot of Americans eat junk food, you assume and then generalize Americans to all eat junk food. And the book is not recommending us to stop generalizing, but if you can do it, then do it. Because generalization is very easy to do and it's very hard to avoid. So maybe if you cannot stop generalizing, then have a moderate generalization. Don't overgeneralize. And to reduce that, it's over here. You can avoid speaking in unconditional terms. Unconditional terms is like totally, absolutely, always, and all those stuff. But you can use these words instead, like often, usually, on average, more likely, tend to. So, for example, before we might say that all Americans eat junk food. You might say that based on the facts, Americans are more likely to eat junk food more than healthy food. You can reduce generalization by using a better word. Number three is objectivity. Basically, being objective is like being unbiased and then don't judge people. There is a problem that if we do it, if we're not objective when talking about culture, we might be ethnocentric, or ethnocentrism is the belief that you think your culture is superior or better to all other cultures. If you think that you're ethnocentric, we don't want to be ethnocentric. We want to approach, respond, or say anything about other cultures from the perspective of their own culture. There's one thing we need to understand before we're learning how to compromise. We're not learning intercultural communication to eliminate all cultural conflicts. We're not learning intercultural communication to avoid cultural conflicts because the question is not about whether the conflicts will happen or not, because the answer is they will definitely will happen. But we need to focus on how to manage those conflicts instead. You cannot avoid the conflicts. It will happen. But you can focus on how to manage the conflicts, how to solve it. So be open-minded and compromise, okay? There's no need to have a winner and loser in every situation. Compromise. We can both win. It's a win-win situation. The last one is to understand that communication is not the universal solution. Once again, it's a big conception that many people learn intercultural communication because they think it will solve everything. Just remember, it's not the universal solution. You cannot just use it to fix everything. So chapter one is done and has been very fun so far, I guess. I hope you guys enjoy it and stay tuned for part two. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. Bye.